I think that I can be confident in saying that Disneyland is easily the best theme park in the United States. There are just so many rides and attractions packed into this park, and they are often the best versions of similar attractions that Disney has built elsewhere. Well, perhaps with the exception of the Haunted Mansion, which I do actually think is slightly better in the Magic Kingdom. What makes Disneyland better isn't just its versions of rides though, but also the smaller, more unique offerings found throughout the park. Its Fantasyland dark rides are easily some of my favorites, and while I'm disappointed that a version of the Matterhorn never came to Epcot with a Swiss pavilion, I do like that it's unique only to Disneyland. There is also a charm to the park that is absent elsewhere, filled with small details that you can't really find at any other park, with only really Animal Kingdom and Islands of Adventure being the only contenders. However, with this level of detail, there's also an element of weirdness to the park that I continue to find surprising every visit. While the majority of Disney parks today feel extremely corporate, with their attractions feeling very plastic, as if produced by a committee of executives, it's the small, weird things that go unnoticed by most park guests in Disneyland that really stand out to me. So while I'm not going to go over every detail that I find interesting, I do want you to come explore the weirder side of Disneyland with me, diving into the small, understated elements that leave a larger impact than you might suspect. I think that when you walk into the Magic Kingdom, Main Street USA is correctly regarded as one of the most iconic theme park lands to have ever existed. The Magic Kingdom is certainly the most popular theme park in the world, and Main Street, of course, leaves a lasting impact on many. However, while it is very well themed, it does not even begin to touch Disneyland's Main Street. I would actually posit that Disneyland's Main Street is so much better themed that the Magic Kingdom version looks completely unthemed in comparison. Everywhere you go, there's so much more detail found throughout its shops and restaurants, and there's quite a bit more entertainment and rideable vehicles moving throughout. It even has great moments with Mr. Lincoln located in the Opera House, and while it's not my favorite show, it's certainly better than waiting 2 hours to meet Mickey in the equivalent building in the Magic Kingdom. With all of this detail comes elements of weirdness though, and one of our first stops is going to be the Main Street Cinema. Inside, you can find a round room playing classic Disney shorts, but what stands out to me is the ticket clerk, a creepy mannequin who goes by the name of Tilly. There's not really anything more to this, but it's just a bit strange to come across. Speaking of mannequins, you can find a few others throughout the Emporium. What I like about many of the rooms throughout this area is that they are all distinctly themed and packed with detail that the Magic Kingdom version lacks, with one of my favorite details being the train that moves around the toy section. However, in the main room of the Emporium itself, there are a number of interesting and slightly unsettling mannequins that you can spot if you look up. Above one of the doorways, a woman appears to be plucking a quill from a pet parrot. Over one of the register areas, a scene portrays a girl looking disgusted at her reflection as a tailor and who I presume is her mother stand nearby. Finally, this last scene located across from the woman with the parrot is less clear to me, but is still quite interesting. This used to portray a scared looking man with a barber coming at him with a razor, but he now appears to have been replaced with a bewildered woman, and the barber is now holding a shirt. These scenes are, well, in the theme of the video, quite weird, but that's exactly what I like about them. Our last stop for strange details on Main Street is Chester Drawers, which appears to be a haberdashery. What makes this little shop strange is its busts, with one being an elegant owl and the other a dapper dog. Again, small elements in the larger theming, but funny and impactful enough that I thought that they were worth pointing out. Oh, by the way, if you found the video interesting thus far, you can do me a favor by hitting the like button. While we're not quite done with Main Street yet, I do want to lump in some of its elements with other coin-operated machines that you can find throughout the park. Just inside the Candy Palace, you'll find a number of machines, including a strength tester and this peculiar electricity machine. The idea behind it is to hold your hands on the metal rods as long as possible as they vibrate violently, simulating the idea of electrocuting you, and if you hold onto the gauge until it reaches its maximum strength, you win, I suppose? Nearby, there is also a fortune teller named Esmeralda, who moves around a bit, but there wasn't any sound, leading me to believe that the machine just wasn't working correctly. After she's done moving, the machine spits out a card with Esmeralda's prophecy, which is just a random fortune, also including magic numbers as well. In the back of the Candy Palace, a marionette machine plays I've Got No Strings, allowing you to press buttons to move Pinocchio's hands and feet in sync with the song. It's mildly entertaining and a fun thing to spend a quarter on. While there are plenty of pressed penny machines located throughout the park, one of the more unique ones has to be in Critter Country. This particular machine is designed to look like the facade of Splash Mountain, and while it wasn't working when I filmed it, I did see that it drops a coin down the waterfall when you purchase one. I'm assuming that this won't stick around too long with the closure of the ride though, but I thought that its unique presentation was worth pointing out. Backtracking a bit to Adventureland, if you go into South Sea Traders, which also doubles as the eating area for Bengal barbecue, you can find another fortune teller sitting out in the middle. This one is a shrunken head of a British man named Shrunken Ned, Jungle Witch Doctor. When you insert the coin and put your hand on the palm reader, he will come to life, cycling through a few different sayings. For example, one of his spiels congratulates you on being the star attraction of the Jungle Banquet, where you'll be sacrificed as the main course. Until that time though, he states that you'll receive a letter in the mail describing what to wear and what your last meal should be. He then prescribes you instructions for good health in the meantime, and the machine spits out a random card with nonsense on it. Another interaction I've had with him starts with him exclaiming that you've arrived for your appointment a day early. He then starts rambling about how it's his birthday, and how the other doctors use his head as a ball to play golf with. He then concludes by telling you to come back tomorrow so that he can cure the myriad of diseases that you've obviously acquired, and finally berates you for not buying a calendar as the machine spits out another nonsense prescription to keep you in good health until your next visit. Moving over to New Orleans Square, the final fortune teller is located between Pieces of 8 and Curios and Curiosities. Known as Fortune Red, inserting a coin into the machine triggers Yo-Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me, as the pirate points at the map and it lights up, revealing the way to hidden treasure. Once the song concludes, this machine also spits out a card which is certainly more interesting than Esmeralda or Shrunken Ned. On one side, Fortune Red gives a prediction which is likely also random, but on the flip side, the card provides a fact about pirates. I'm not sure if this is randomized, as I only used this machine once, but the card I got explained the origin of the Jolly Roger and other pirate flags, also providing a selection of others that were used and naming which captains that they belonged to. I did like this particular card a bit more than the others because it was somewhat educational. Finally, the last interesting machine I would like to speak about is located in Frontierland. If you walk into Pioneer Mercantile and walk to the back of the shop, another coin-operated marionette can be found. In this case, it's Woody's Hoedown, where the machine plays the theme from Woody's Roundup, and you can use the buttons to move his hands and feet in sync to the song. It's not the most interesting attraction, but none of them really are on their own. What makes them worth mentioning is that they're just quirky little attractions that work to enhance an already great park, feeling like hidden finds that add depth to the theming, which is something that Disneyland does very well just about everywhere. Staying in Frontierland, Some of my favorite details can be found on the ships that sail around the rivers of America. For example, if you board the Mark Twain, the park's steam paddler, you can explore the different decks and find a variety of interesting elements that enhance the experience in small ways. The lower deck allows you to get a view of the machinery that powers the ship, and while you can see this on the Liberty Square riverboat at the Magic Kingdom as well, the Mark Twain continues to offer more. On the middle deck, you can walk through a small room with mirrors, and while I don't know its purpose, it's a nice immersive addition that you can't find on the Magic Kingdom riverboat. Finally, on the top deck, there's a small covered seating area with a few pictures of sailing ships and a steamboat, celebrating early American nautical travel. These details are just small elements of the Mark Twain, but again, it's the small things that really add a lot of depth and immersion to the Disneyland experience, allowing you to feel as if you've discovered something that goes unnoticed by the majority of park guests. If you didn't board the Mark Twain, then you always have the alternative of the sailing ship Columbia, which is a replica of the first American ship to circumnavigate the globe in 1790. I find this to be the more interesting vessel, I think maybe because it's unique to Disneyland, but it is also a fundamentally different experience than the Mark Twain because of its unique narration, and a cast member will actually fire a blank from one of the cannons during the voyage. Riders first board the Columbia by walking up the steps to the brow and board the upper deck. You could certainly spend the entire voyage up here, but if you choose to go below deck, you'll see a part of the ship that I don't think most guests will ever experience. Here, you'll find a pretty detailed exhibit of how the ship may have existed, allowing you to gain a bit of insight into what sailing with it might have been like. You'll see areas meant for cooking, food storage, lodging, and a variety of other elements scattered throughout. Certain cabins are also labeled for certain crew members as well. Maybe this and the Mark Twain aren't particularly weird, but since we're on the topic of details in Disneyland, I thought that these immersive aspects that often go unnoticed were worth mentioning. However, one last element of Frontierland I would like to briefly discuss is the shooting exposition. I feel like I don't really need to explain what a shooting arcade is, but this is certainly one of the better ones that I've experienced. The scene is intended to be a western graveyard overlooking a town, and hitting the targets will cause a number of interesting effects to trigger. I don't see the need to go over every element, but a few of my favorites include the skeleton coming up out of the grave, the ghost rider traversing the sky, the minecart rolling out from the mine, and I like to see the various animals move or appear as well. Part of the fun with something like this is discovering what will happen when you hit the targets, so I encourage you to try this out if you happen to find yourself at the park. Like the other coin-operated enterprises or weird details that you can find throughout, it's something very small like this that can have a large impact on your day, allowing you to feel as if you've discovered something that most people won't notice. These elements only help to immerse you into what is already one of the best themed parks in the world, and I thought that covering them probably makes for a different but still interesting video. As always, if you haven't already done so, you can do me a favor by hitting the like button. If you're interested in videos like this, but haven't yet hit the subscribe button with bell notification, you can do so to be alerted to new videos as they release.